When I think of art in Yesler Terrace, I think of the values that are stated by the people during the redevelopment, and those are the people who have lived here. And so issues of social equity, how can art play a role in that? Issues of health and well-being, what's the role of art in that, and how can artists help support that? Issues of education and literacy, what role can artists play in that? And issues of environmental stewardship and understanding sustainable healthy living. And so I look at art as a lens to support many of the other values that we have in our community.
It stimulates you, and it stimulates you without using language. And this community has so many different type of people with so many different languages. But what happens with art communicates with you. When you look at art, you feel a certain way.
I think the typical approach, which I'm very critical of, is agencies, usually government agencies, put out a call for artists. And what often happens is there are many barriers that many artists encounter in order to win those commissions from the agencies. Many of those barriers are they're looking for an artist that is trained with higher education, most often an MFA. They're also looking for an artist that has a command of the English language and can navigate a really, really lengthy online application process.
I was just recently chosen as a finalist, as I said, for the Yesler Terrace project. And one of the problems with these projects and why African Americans are not getting any art projects. One reason is because there's very little African representation on the panels.
Much of the public art in Seattle is awarded to highly educated white artists, and it's not reflective of the whole community.
The artist that should be there, actually, it should be a black person that putting up for the city or whatever, and the artist's work should represent past, present, and future of Yesler Terrace, actually.
So just last year, we hired our first artist, Mauricio Robolino, for the 10th Avenue South Hill Climb, which is a new staircase and pedestrian walkway that will connect Yesler Terrace and Little Saigon. And I think he's a really great example of how art can benefit the community. We selected an artist who really gets inspired by community members and draws his inspiration from them. So we had over a dozen community meetings with Yesler Terrace and Little Saigon.
So they didn't have the consciousness of the African American struggle here in America, in particular the struggle here in Seattle. So because we're losing our voice here, we need to have someone that has a voice and a knowledge of the history of what's happening now and what has happened, to the plight of African Americans in this town.
I've included the Yesler Terrace and Seattle Housing Authority and anybody else who wanted to be involved in the brainstorming process of how we came up with the ideas.
Several residents talked about how art can preserve the culture and preserve the history and legacy of Yesler Terrace, and also speak to the present and the future of this neighborhood. And so he created this idea of 24 glass mosaic medallions that will represent the past, present, and future of Yesler Terrace.
In this community, it was Fatima and Kristen O'Donnell, and people, me from the Parks Department, and we reviewed those proposals and selected 4 artists, and the 4 artists were interviewed, and then one was selected. The 4 professional artists made the final decision, and everybody else, we were all advisors.
You get used to being on review teams, advisory panels, and so on, where you get to talk, but they don't have to listen.
Well, one was already chosen. Her name is Christine Bourdette. We interviewed 4, though, and it was a really hard decision because they were all excellent artists.
The identity is the community. It's not an artist coming in that's not from the community, giving their concepts and ideas and aesthetics. It's really an artist working alongside in an equal way with the community, but the community is the driver. They are the ones that identify how they want to be represented.